Welcome back to Reviews with Elaine, because I have opinions, and today's opinions will be about Liar's Moon by Elizabeth C. Bunce. Okay, so yes, I really liked this book, and I finished it like maybe 30 minutes ago. The fact that I'm late writing my review tonight has a lot more to do with my distractibility than about the book, though that's not entirely correct. As I got near the end, even though I knew I was supposed to already have finished reading, writing the review, recording the review, and preferably have it already edited and up, even though I knew I was quite a bit behind my usual schedule, I kept finding myself just laying the book down for a minute and being like, well, I don't want it to end, I'm enjoying this. But Liar's Moon is the sequel to Star-Crossed, which I reviewed like 2 months ago. We follow Digger, who has returned to Gerse, the city that she's from, after her adventure accidentally becoming part of the rebellion to put Prince Werewolf on the throne, and so hopefully in the slaughter of anyone born with magic. She had thought she was coming back to the capital city to settle her own life there, and hopefully to help the Tsarists, the people who have magic and those who support them, you know, find them and get them connected to the rebellion happening outside the city, and basically, you know, work as the spy inside the city. But after a couple of months at home, she hasn't found anyone. She has not managed to make any contact with any rebels inside the city, any Tsarists, nothing. She found also that she doesn't quite fit into the life that she's always lived here, and she's basically just making do. Until one night, she's dragged to prison. And not because she's a thief and a forger, not because she was a rebel openly connected to, you know, Prince Werewolf and his rebellion, not even because she herself does have a very peculiar kind of magic. No, it's not until she's thrown into the cell with a man named Lord Durrell, the young nobleman who had saved her in Book 1, and who had gotten her involved in the Tsarist rebellion in the first place by accident. She suddenly realizes that she's actually being enlisted to help him. This young nobleman has been accused of murdering his wife, which he insists he did not do. And no one seems to be trying to find the truth, except his friend Raffin and now Digger. Okay, so I really liked this book, like, a lot. And the reason I liked it, a lot of them are pretty much the same reasons I liked Book 1, so there will be a lot of stuff that I'm just skimming over, because you can go back and watch the review of Book 1 and see my more in-depth thoughts about it. But I was so impressed with Book 1, and the fact that it was a court intrigue style book, where everyone has secrets that could get them killed at any moment, and everyone's keeping everything from everyone else, and there's the constant threat of betrayal, and our lead has to find out the truth about all these seemingly polite noble folk in order to survive. But even though it was that style of book, it still managed to show a world where most people really are just trying to be good people, do what's necessary to protect their loved ones, and make the world a better place in their own way. And this book continues the theme in a truly exemplar way. Like, again, we have a cast of characters who all have life-threatening secrets. Everyone has a damn good, believable reason for keeping their secrets and not being willing to talk about them, and Digger has to uncover them, constantly learning things that could have been betrayals, or could not, and could mean that her friends are bad people, or could not. And again, I marveled at how well this was managed. Everyone had motivations that I understood. Digger has reasons to constantly be suspicious, and sometimes her suspicions were proven right, and sometimes they were proven wrong, but she still has reasons to like, respect, and help the people around her, even after secrets were revealed. With one real exception. There is one character whose motivation is still, let's call it a bit obscure. Like, unless there's a lot of secrets going on, it doesn't 100% make sense, but I really do think there are a lot of secrets going on here. And I think that what's going on here is a lot of the untangling of the mess that is this particular character was going to be part of Book 3. And here's the elephant in the room. This is the second in what was meant to be a trilogy, and the third book was never published. And from what I understand, there's no sign it will ever be published. And I knew that before I picked up book 1. Like, this was not a surprise to me. I actually picked it up specifically because someone on Threads was talking about how much they loved this series and what a tragedy it was that book 3 never got published. And I was curious, but also I am hopeful that if enough people read the first 2 books and buy the first 2 books, maybe the author will decide to publish a 3rd one. You know, let's help her out. But because of that, I knew that I was getting into something that might have a cliffhanger ending, and in fact, the person who recommended it actually mentioned that the book 2 does end in a cliffhanger. And here's the thing. It does, and it doesn't. About 5 pages into Starcrossed, the first book, I was immediately going, I think I know what the cliffhanger is going to be. And throughout the entire first book and the majority of this book, I'm going, yeah, I think I know what the cliffhanger is going to be. I think I know. I think I know where this is going. I'm 90% sure I know where this was going. And I was right. I knew exactly where it was going. And I'm not saying that to be like, ooh, boo, predictable. Huh. No, it's just one of those things that feels right. There's not a huge amount of really obvious foreshadowing, but there's enough that if you know there's going to be a cliffhanger ending soon, then yeah, you're going to have a good idea about what it's going to be. And I think it really does work. I think it's very clear. There's just enough foreshadowing that it feels right without it feeling, you know, too obvious. But other than that one cliffhanger, which in my opinion really does have that feeling of the after the credits scene from a Marvel movie, or that last segment of a TV show after the commercial break that's like, ooh, tune in next week so you get to see more of this like plot line that we've introduced. Other than that though, which is really it's less than a full page, but other than that, and the one character's sort of unresolved motivation feelings, everything else in this book feels like it has enough resolution that I'm not mad that I'm not going to be able to read book 3 soon or possibly ever. Like, we've gotten enough movement in the rebellion that I can happily imagine the rest on my own. We've gotten enough of the arc of Digger's magic that, yeah, I get it, I know where she's going. We get a fully realized arc with Durrell, whatever his name is, murder conviction, like all of that, it's resolved. We get enough of Digger getting involved with the war that we get a feeling of resolution. Yes, I would have loved to see more of the characters that were very important characters in book 1 brought in more. And, like, they're not used at all in book 2. There's a lot of characters that are introduced there and then just have not appeared in this book, and you know they're going to appear in book 3. Like, you can tell. But overall, none of it leaves me going, oh my god, you can't end it there, what the hell? Like, honestly, I am content with this being the end of the series, if it is. Like, if book 3 comes out, great, I can't wait to find out. But I'm sort of okay with it, other than that little cliffhanger at the very, very end. And if you just cut that, like, one last page from the book, I would happily call this a duology with trilogy potential. Like, it could have gone on to be a trilogy, it could be a duology, it's not a problem. But other than that, most of what I want to talk about with this book, I have already addressed with the review for Starcrossed. Like, a lot of the same feelings are had here. I continued to like the way the magic worked in these books. I felt like it had the exact right level of explanation so that we could follow what's going on, we understand it, it makes sense. Never does it feel like there are no rules. I know there are rules, but there's not so much of the explanation of the magic system that it overwhelms what is otherwise a pretty fast-paced character and plot-driven story. Digger is still a great character, feeling both more mature but also really impulsive in a way that I feel like works perfectly for a protagonist in a YA novel. Like, she feels both adult enough to be aspirational, but childish enough that you can see yourself in her as a young person. And she also just maintains a lovely anger to her. Like, I love me an angry female lead, and she does have a good bit of anger to her. And I love her self-awareness of her own skills. Like, she's not that mousy girl that's like, oh, I don't know what I can do. She can do shit, and she knows it. Also, her skills make sense and are useful. Like, I really like the character of Digger. One tiny thing, I only read Starcrossed, like, maybe 2 months ago, and I remember it quite well. And I totally did not realize that Digger was going to have permanent scars and injuries from what happened at the end of book 1. So when this book started and there was just casually mentioning here and there, like the limp, oh yeah, the missing fingertips, I was like, wait, what? What? And now part of that might actually be a flaw in my memory. I don't have a perfect memory. I don't remember everything from books. But I think that this book just needed like one line really early on, because there's one about halfway through the book that clearly states it. But if there had been a line like maybe 5 pages in that directly stated, hey, yeah, remember how at the end of book 1 she got all cut up and this happened and that happened? Yeah, she's still feeling effects of that. But that being said, I love it when a character carries physical as well as mental scars from, you know, previous adventures. Like, I feel like it adds a really good solid weight to what's happening and shows that, like, yeah, no, really, those adventures did not happen and then just disappear. I like seeing the characters have the marks of it from the previous books, and not just mentally, because I feel like mental scars are very common in books, but physical scars are often just visual and not actually affecting the way they move. And there are actually moments in here where, you know, she is having trouble because she does have scars and like a limp and stuff. But continuing the list of things I love, I still love the world building here, and impressed with the subtle ways it differs from the expected. There is a strict nobility class structure here, and it's unusually porous. Like, Digger can go to a fancy noble person's party and just be seen as an interesting novelty. And, like, her roommate is from a, like, merchant family, we get the impression, but a relatively high-placed merchant family, but is, like, living above a bakery with a thief, and nobody thinks this is weird. And he has a lover who's a nobleman, and that's fine, and they can appear in public, and nobody really cares. And I just love that acknowledgement that, yeah, hierarchical class structures do tend to be a little bit strict, but there is a good bit of mixing between the levels. Just because you are on 2 different levels does not mean you're not going to be friends with other people. And I just like the interesting way that's dealt with. Similarly, there is a huge part of the plot here is that Lord Durrell is married to a much older woman. Like, he is younger than her adult children. And I like it just because it's so unusual. That is a plot that is almost always put on girls. Girls are the one who are married off to much older, more wealthy men and have to just be, you know, the trophy wife. And it's nice seeing it reversed just because it's unexpected. But also, I love the continuing understanding in this world that when marriages are 100% political arrangements, extramarital affairs become an absolutely accepted norm. Like, yeah, a lot of the characters in this book have their spouse and then the person they're actually interested in. And it's sort of just fine. I also love the fact that there are gay characters in this book, and it's pretty accepted. Like, we get no sign that there is any, like, you know, hatred towards gay people or anything. Like, yeah, none of them are married to people of the same gender, but it's very clear that marriage is about producing heirs, and that's it. But I always appreciate these things. It's great. And I love one weird thing that's specific to this book, not just the 2 books. Digger's familial connections is sort of a big secret and a big reveal in book 1. Like, who she is really matters. And I expected that to be part of book 2, too. Like, it felt like something that was going to continue into this one. And her desperately trying to keep her secret that is now partially out and trying to deal with the fallout from that. Like, that felt like the expected path. And no, that's not where we go. Just like everyone knows, and a huge number of people know she's a thief, and everyone seems to just be okay with it. And there's an interesting casual way that it's treated. And, like, it's one of those things that I'm not entirely sure is 100% logical, but I was still happy with the way it was presented, just because I feel like the slightly more logical and common storyline of, oh, can I trust you now that I know who you truly are? It would have been a little bit redundant and tried and, like, overly done. And so I'm actually really okay with people just sort of accepting that blood does not mean ally, and that Digger is who Digger is, unrelated to who she is related to. And overall, I I found this book fun. Like, it was enjoyable to read. There's a bit of romance in this one, and yeah, I like the pairing that we get. And in book one, I'd mentioned, the review for book one, I mentioned that there were a couple of people that I was like, okay, this is where the romance is going to go, I can tell. And it is one of the two I expected. And I really like this ship. Like, they're really good together. It's cute. I understand why they like each other. It's not just physical, but it is also physical. It's well done that way. And I really like the fact that the romance has a bit of an unusual resolution here. And specifically, there's none of the traditional, I'll marry you despite what our society says. No, it's just accepted that, yeah, they might not be getting married soon or maybe even ever. There's no heading to the chapel here, but there is still a resolution. There's still happiness. And like, there's a moment about halfway through this book where one of the characters tells Digger that she is perfect for her romantic interest because she is cosmically unmarriageable, which is just a sentence that I loved. Like, I want it on a t-shirt, I want it on a mug, I want it on a sticker, I want to be able to label myself cosmically unmarriageable. I love it. And yeah, I suspect that if book 3 ever does come out, we are heading towards a possible love triangle or even a love quadrangle. And like, I had felt that in book 1 that like, yeah, we might be heading towards a love triangle. I wasn't super stoked about that because I'm not a huge fan of them. And I do think that if book 3 ever comes out, we probably will get to see that love triangle. But I've already decided my ship. I know who I'm voting for. Like, I'm happy with where we are right now. And especially considering I've already gotten bad vibes about one of the other possible love interests. Like, I know he's sketch. I know he's sketch. Even though the book has not told us he's sketch. He's sketch. But I just like the way the romance is handled here. It's fun and silly and light, but also so dramatic and teenage, and it's good. But also, I love the characters that were put, the amount of character that was put into the minor characters here. People like Esk, Hobbin, Basson, and even unnamed characters got just the perfect amount of strong dialogue, weird actions, and well-described expressions and stances and things like that, to make them feel like people who might all have their own stories without the need to waste too much words on them. Like, it was a perfect amount of characterization. And the writing is nice and fluid, quick and easy read. Like, I sat down tonight knowing that I needed to read about 80 pages, write a review, record it, edit it, and get it up, and I think I still will on time. Or on time. By the end of Saturday, it'll be up, I promise. But there's also a very nice attention to detail in the clothing, the architecture, and the culture, that this all felt like a really lived-in world, inspired by history, but made the author's own. Like, it never felt bound to history, but there's enough in here that I'm like, yeah, no, she knows what she's talking about. This was researched. And I keep being inclined to sort of dismiss this book as just fun. YA fantasy romp. Like, you know, it's a bit tropey. It's a fun book. But I think I'm being unfair to it even as I love it. Because there are enough deeper moments that I know this book is going to stick with me. The way the morally gray actions are handled. The themes that almost everyone out there is really just trying to survive and trying to help the people they care about. The questions Digger has to ask herself about forgiveness. It's got a lot of strong things to say beyond just the fun fantasy stuff. And overall, I just really like this book. And yes, if book 3 does ever come out, I am going to buy it. And I'm going to love reading it. And even if, like, it doesn't, I'm still happy having read the 2 books that exist as of now. And when I hit one of those moods that I'm in the mood to do nothing but reread, I suspect this series is going to come up for me again. I really like these books. So yeah, do us all a favor, buy whatever copies you can get of Star-Crossed and Liar's Moon, and maybe we can somehow get book 3 to exist.